This metropolis, known for its skyscrapers, the iconic stock exchange, and its population of more than 8.4 million inhabitants, could be on the verge of an unprecedented crisis. Have you ever imagined it? Before we dive in, remember, if you enjoy this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like it, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos we post. Now let's go back to New York, a city that is balancing on a razor's edge. Recent events threaten to change the face of New York, from a beacon of prosperity and wealth to a city in ruins and depopulated, a mirror of what Detroit once was. Detroit, once a booming city during the 50s, saw its population drastically reduced from 1.8 million inhabitants to only 650,000 in 2022, due to a severe economic crisis. Right now, the city of skyscrapers could be following a similar path, and today we will uncover the hidden realities and events that are precipitating this potential collapse. We will look at the potential consequences this could bring to New York, and by extension, the rest of the country. Thousands of people are beginning to leave the Big Apple, hit by the high cost of living and wages that are failing to keep pace. For newcomers, especially immigrants, the job search has become increasingly complicated. In response to these circumstances, many New Yorkers are choosing to seek new opportunities in other cities or even in countries like Canada or Mexico. To put this in context, the average salary in New York is approximately $84,000 a year, which translates into a monthly income of $7,000. However, the average cost of living can range from $7,000 to $2,000 per month for a family of two, leaving many residents struggling to keep up. This has triggered a wave of migration in search of more attractive opportunities. But this economic reality is just the tip of the iceberg. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has mentioned that the city is preparing to enter a perfect financial storm. In fact, Adams has recently called on city agencies to reduce spending and cut services in the face of the impending crisis. According to a public report for New York's financial plan, the city faces a $10 billion deficit for 2020, and total revenues are projected to decline by $11 billion in fiscal year 2020. And while the city's fiscal situation improved significantly in 2022, thanks to higher than expected tax revenues, government aid, and record pension returns, many of these factors have begun to reverse. The New York Times reported that more than 300,000 middle-class families fled New York last year, causing a severe impact on government revenues. Many of these residents have been subjected to a myriad of taxes, regulations, and restrictions, resulting in a significant impediment to growth and progress. Other states such as Florida and Texas have become quite attractive to immigrants because of their embrace of economic liberalism. Meanwhile, New York has seen its economy languish, a process that has only been accelerated by the healthcare crisis and confinement policies. This has led hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers to move to other cities in search of better job opportunities and a more affordable cost of living. In addition, the real estate market in New York is at a critical point. Home prices are higher than ever, averaging $620,000 per home. This, combined with high mortgage interest rates, has made home ownership unaffordable for many middle-class residents. New York is also facing a humanitarian crisis. Mayor Eric Adams declared a state of emergency when the city's shelters began to fill up, a direct consequence of the influx of immigrants who have arrived in the city. This problem further aggravates the city's already delicate fiscal situation. In addition, the city is experiencing a troubling rise in homelessness and crime rates. All of this, combined with declining wages and rising inflation, is causing more people to flee New York, leaving a city at risk of being completely empty and economically devastated. One of the most alarming social issues is the rapid increase in poverty. New York City has one of the highest poverty rates of any major city in the United States. According to the most recent Census Bureau report, 19.3% of New Yorkers lived in poverty in 2022. This figure has increased due to high housing costs, growing job insecurity, and the lingering effects of the COVID pandemic-19. In terms of income inequality, New York presents one of the most discouraging pictures in the nation. Upscale neighborhoods are mixed with impoverished areas, and the gap between rich and poor has widened. According to 2022 census data, the wealthiest 1% of New York City earns 44 times more than the remaining 99%. This level of economic inequality threatens social cohesion and exacerbates existing problems in the city. Education has also taken a significant hit in the city. School closures due to the pandemic have accentuated the education gap between students from affluent families and those from low-income households. Budget cuts threaten to exacerbate this problem by limiting access to essential educational programs and reducing the quality of education in general. Food insecurity is another troubling problem. Many families in New York struggle to put food on the table. In fact, according to a report by the charity City Harvest, 1 in 5 New Yorkers is food insecure. The growing mental health crisis is another troubling aspect of the social situation in New York. Mental health services have become inaccessible to many New Yorkers due to lack of resources and clinic closures. This lack of support has resulted in an increase in mental health problems among the city's population, especially in low-income communities. On the economic front, New York's public debt has reached unprecedented levels. At the end of 2022, municipal debt exceeded $110 billion, an increase of 17% since the beginning of the COVID pandemic-19. This heavy debt burden threatens the city's future solvency and limits its ability to invest in infrastructure, education, and social services. Finally, climate change also threatens New York economically and socially. Projections suggest that stronger storms and rising sea levels could cause significant damage to the city's infrastructure, which in turn could lead to significant economic losses. In addition, the most vulnerable populations are the most exposed to the impacts of climate change, which could further exacerbate the city's already troubling social situation. By now, many Americans have exhausted their savings and are now in a deep hole trying to keep up with the rising cost of living. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, 49% of Americans have less savings than they did a year ago. Of those, 43% have no savings at all, and 68% of respondents say they are saving less due to inflation, down from 49% last year. Nearly the same percentage say that changes in income or employment status cause them to save less for unexpected expenses. This puts these workers at serious risk of experiencing financial insecurity. A single emergency expenditure could force them to take on high levels of debt and affect their ability to make ends meet. In the past 2 years, 3 million people received help from food banks. A recent Feeding America Food Bank survey found that 1 in 6 adults turned to food charity, such as groceries or free meals, in the past year. Since 2021, more than 53 million people turned to food banks and food pantries to have enough to feed themselves and their families. That's 33% more than the number of people who sought help during the pandemic. We're living in tough times, and New York seems to be facing one of its most critical moments. But we'd love to hear from you. What do you think about the situation in New York? Leave us your comments below. And remember, if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.